In the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, around 900 miles west of Portugal and 2,000 miles east of the US coastline, lies a bustling archipelago of 9 isolated islands spread across 600 kilometres of water. The Azores were once remote and uncharted. The islands flourished in pristine beauty, its volcanic landscapes shaped by time into crater lakes, hot springs and lava caves, home to hundreds of species of plants and animals. Over time, humans arrived as well, settling across all 9 islands and weaving their culture, heritage and traditions into the land. But despite this human presence, it is still the volcanic geology and tropical flora that continues to define the character of the Azores. This compact and luscious vegetation that you see here expands across the entire island in the Azores. Much of this flora appears very tropical, but in fact the Azorean climate is not tropical at all. The Gulf Stream and surrounding Atlantic simply keeps the islands very warm in the winter and cool in the summer, avoiding big extremes which allow these tropical-looking plants to thrive. One plant that dominates the floral scene in the Azores is the hydrangea. File Island is even known as the Blue Island because of the sheer abundance of these flowers lining its roads and fields. But blue is not their only colour. Depending on the soil's pH and aluminium content, they can bloom in white, pink, purple, yellow or blue. Interestingly, the vast majority of vegetation and flora that you see in the Azores are not endemic to the islands at all. Rather, the seeds travelled across from America in the wind and in the sea. Actually, only 60 species in the Azores are indigenous to the islands. Another defining geological feature of the Azorean landscape is its volcanoes. Located along the mid-Atlantic ridge, these islands were formed by the movement of tectonic plates on the ocean floor. As the plates pull apart, molten rock pushes through the gaps, gradually building vast volcanic mountains that eventually rise above the ocean's surface as new islands and visible volcanoes. I'm currently standing at the edge of the crater of Pico Volcano on Pico Island. The summit that you can see over there is at an elevation of 2,351 metres, which is not only the highest peak in the Azores, but in the whole of Portugal. Despite the island only being 300,000 years old, making it the youngest of all Azorean islands, Pico Volcano is the 3rd highest volcano in the North Atlantic Ocean. Our guide, who has reached the summit nearly 400 times, explained to us the 3 main stages of the volcano's formation.
So the first stage was around 150,000 years ago, which was what now we call the fossil crater. It was a little bit more than 2,000 meters tall. And after that, the crater we see right now was formed in about 100,000 years ago. And the lava from this one filled the previous one. This is why it fossilized the first. And then Piquinho, where we are standing right now, was the last stage, formed about 50,000 years ago.
But whilst this volcanic presence is impressive, it does come with its dangers. 5 of the islands have experienced volcanic eruptions and earthquakes over the years. The most recent eruption was recorded on Teixeira Island in 1998. Yet, while these eruptions can be destructive, they are also creative forces that shape the way of life in the Azores. I'm currently standing at the edge of Furnas Lake in San Miguel in the Azores, and behind me I'm surrounded by these volcanic hot springs which are bubbling away at 100 degrees Celsius and are really releasing this sulfuric aroma. Traditionally, the Azoreans use these hot springs as a way of cooking a traditional meal called cozido, which is where they put meat and vegetables into an urn-like pot, and then they place these pots about 1 meter underground into these holes, and there it rests for about 6 to 8 hours and cooks at 100 degrees Celsius. This same geothermal activity also creates natural hot springs across the island, both in the sea and inland. One of the most famous locations to experience this is in Ponta de Ferriara, where the water is rich in iron and sulphur, and therefore not only carries a sharp, eggy scent, but also stains the skin an orange colour. But it's these minerals that are said to hold therapeutic benefits, drawing in visitors from around the world. Beyond these tourist attractions, the Azores also have a long history of culture and traditions that for centuries have shaped the way of life on the islands.
In the Azores we have 9 islands, right? So each island has its own characteristics, even though everyone who came here was either Portuguese or Flemish. In between the islands there are a lot of small differences in between the cultures, can be on the dancing, on the food, on the costumes, but mainly there is always like one core that it's common in between all of them.
One of the most fundamental of these customs was the fishing and whaling culture, which for many years was crucial in providing stability to the island's economy.
With whaling, it was such a big part, it had such a big impact on our culture. There was this alarm that sounded, everyone stopped in the exact moment, and they would go just for the whale. Just a few people would actually enjoy the whaling, because the whole process was like, they would torture the whales to death. They would like stab them and make them bleed to death. They would call it, what was it, like Infernal's dance, something like that. It would last for hours and hours and hours, and then they would drag the whale.
The whale was valued primarily for the oil produced from its blubber and head, which was used for home lighting as it burnt with a smokeless and odourless flame. This oil was even exported to London, where it fueled the city's street lamps.
We did it out of need. So I think in general, everyone's pretty happy that it stopped.
Other than whaling, the Azores also has a long tradition in the production of tea. I'm currently standing in Goreana Tea Plantation on San Miguel Island in the Azores. It's the oldest and last remaining commercial tea plantation in Europe. This plantation was founded in 1883 and produces 3 different types of tea, all derived from the Camellia sinensis plant. All the machines used in the plantation to produce the tea are of British origin from the 19th and 20th century, and this played a large factor in the attraction of tourists over the years. Religion is another element deeply embedded in the Azorean culture. Just like Portugal, Catholicism is the dominant faith, deeply reflected in the annual traditions and festivals celebrated across the islands. A local guide explained to me one of the most traditional of these festivities, which is a pilgrimage called Romeiros across São Miguel Island.
There is a 16th century a group of pilgrims who kind of make a hike around the island for 7 days and stop in every church to make prayers, because back in the days there was a lot of earthquakes and volcanic eruption.
The first pilgrimage took place in 1522 after an earthquake hit the city of Vila Franca de Campo in São Miguel, destroying much in its path. The citizens believed that the natural disaster was a punishment from God, therefore began this pilgrimage in the name of protecting the island from all future disasters.
This is still alive. So before the Easter, these 40 days of, we call it Quaresma here, they used to do this hike. Every village gathers a group of pilgrims, even the younger ones. They use the Catholicism to kind of share the culture and kind of protecting it.
Other religious festivals include the Holy Spirit festivals. Typically, they involved parades of people dressed in traditional costume and carrying baskets of bread on their heads. Often there'd also be a ceremonial crowning of queens of the festival, followed by a large community feast.
We have the Holy Spirit fests, which are the bigger fests in the islands, the most important and significant religious fests. And during these fests, they sacrifice cows, and then historically they would offer to the whole village a free meal, because back in the old days most people didn't have that much access to protein, especially in meat. Fish was easier, but not meat. So it was a way of them to paying their promises to the Holy Spirit and then giving back to the communities.
Whilst many parts of Azorean culture and history are cherished, unfortunately not all are remembered with such pride. In 2001, São Miguel was completely turned upside down when a storm washed ashore nearly half a ton of cocaine.
Of course, it spread out throughout the suburbs and reached Ponta Delgada for many reasons. For those who have money and can afford it, it still got affected through generations by the way that they were miseducated still nowadays.
Given that the islands are a common stop-off point for South American cargo ships, many drug deliveries pass through the Azores, increasing the quantity available to the islanders.
Then you have a lot of troubles with drugs, especially nowadays with synthetic drugs.
I don't know exactly the components that it has, but I know it's kind of killing a part of the society nowadays. And I don't know how they will stop it, because it never runs out of passing through here, transatlantic, vice versa.
Unfortunately, worries continue beyond this incident as tourism begins to dominate the islands, bringing progress and development, but also posing a significant threat to a traditional way of life that once defined the islands.
2013 is a year that kind of shifted everything around in a way that we open our airspace to the world. At the beginning, we were still babies, and the humble population of Europe who were hosting us say, oh, this is cozy, this is what we have. And then we upgrade our infrastructures and the quality of the service. And nowadays it's affecting a lot in our Icelanders' daily basis. Young couples, for example, who want to start affording a house, it's hard due to the foreign investors buying properties here and there. They say there is sustainability, but at some point money speaks louder. Once I mentioned I'm the last of my kind, this is because of it. It's been hard to live and to progress and to raise a family here.
My time in the Azores opened my eyes to the fragile balance between progress and preservation. Globalization fuels economic growth and cultural exchange, but it also erodes the very traditions that make each place unique. As travellers, we seek out the unfamiliar and the authentic, but our presence can trigger the loss of what we came to find. The challenge then is not to resist change, but to guide it. Protecting culture is not about keeping it frozen in time, but about allowing it to grow without losing its roots. If we can strike this balance, the Azores and countless other cultures will not just survive, but will continue to thrive for generations to come.